Welcome back to the evening show. Now, we're in the advertising business as well, believe it or not, and every form of advertising, every form of media has taken a huge, huge hit because of the challenging economic environment that we find ourselves in. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel? Is there a tunnel? Here to cast some light on that is a lecturer in marketing at DIT in Dublin, and that's Alex Gibson. Alex, you're very welcome. Media, of course, when things get bad economically, is always the first to get hit. But it's been particularly badly hit this time.
It has. I suppose a couple of the big sectors that have driven the media, particularly financial, obviously, have been particularly hit, so they've been cutting back a lot. The retail sectors are really suffering. They've been big advertisers, particularly on print. If you take your typical newspaper and flick through it, you'll see have traditionally seen lots of full-page ads. Those same budgets are now being used for price promotions in store. So you're right. Every sector is hit, but and from
property,
different angles.
Of course, property, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not that long ago that on a Thursday and Friday you had 20 pages, and these pages, when you think about them, they were worth up to $500,000 in advertising per week for each of these newspapers. It's a huge hole in their budgets.
Okay, I mean, there's lots of changes going on in the sector, and a lot of I suppose different strategies. But you've also got some loosening up in terms of the regulations. There's talk now of product placement, I mean, in the real sense that I could open this program and say, "Hi, here's my soft fizzy drink." That could happen.
You're right, David. Yeah, if we had to do that now, and we had a soft drink in front of us, we'd have to put a label in front of it. But there's a lot of discussion, particularly in the UK. ITV have been lobbying very strongly, and it looks like the government there are open to the suggestion that product placement will happen. For people who don't know what we're talking about where companies in movies, which have been happening for years, you might remember Michael J. Fox, Back to the Future, the DeLorean car, for example. In a lot of the James Bond movies, there's cars featuring. Those are paid for by the advertisers as a way of getting their message across. A lot of pressure now on being put on the UK government, particularly by ITV, to allow the same there. And it looks from the soundings that that's going to be allowed.
But when you think about that, I mean, I don't want to broaden out the discussion too much on this, but when you think about that, somewhere like ITV, somewhere like TV3 in this country, they're hugely commercialised vehicles anyway. I mean, how much further can we go? I mean, there are rules and regulations surrounding the sponsorship of news, and probably understandably. But, what are we going to see now? Are we going to see, a newsreader or a presenter sort of eating crisps,
Well, we're certainly seeing that in light entertainment programs in the US, where the presenters on American Idol and that have the Coke bottle sitting in front of them. I mean, there are some issues around that, absolutely, as to where the lines between editorial and advertising fit, and whether, for example, people who are producing soap operas are going to come under pressure to change the script radically to incorporate a product placement where their budgets are under pressure. So that's definitely going to be an issue. But the reality is that these advertisers are suffering huge holes in their budgets. Getting to consumers via traditional advertising is increasingly difficult. And there's been a lot of studies in the States that show that product placement works. It has a very powerful way of associating a brand with a particular image in the mind of consumers, much more so than traditional advertising. In the US, they're looking at checks and balances. I think that if it's to come here, and I think it will come here, I think we're going to have to see some checks and balances, particularly acknowledgement at the end of the program, for example, of the relationship between the products that are featured. But if those checks and balances are put in place, I think it does have a role here in Ireland as well.
Okay, the overall media scene is changing dramatically. There's been an increase in the online spend, buying advertising on the internet. Now, commentators say that is equivalent to about 4% of the overall spend now. They're also saying that 4%, while it's equivalent, has not cut into the other media, but it's expanded the cake somewhat. As online grows, and inevitably it will, who's going to suffer? Is it print?
I think a couple of sectors are definitely going to be challenged. Print's already being challenged, particularly in the classifieds area, which is maybe not as obvious to people, but there's a lot of revenue seepage, as it were, and we've seen that in areas like property. We've certainly seen it in some of the classified sections. Print, I think, is definitely going to be under pressure. I think TV can be under pressure as well, unless it gets its act together in terms of making sure that the model of how you measure the television audience is improved. I think TV still has a very powerful role to play in building an association with the brand that no other medium, arguably cinema, can perform. But TV is a mass medium. The reality is that it's still mass medium. We hear a lot of talk about moving on to the internet and fragmentation, but we just have to look at the ratings for the Late Late Show recently and seeing that more than 1 million people. It's still a great medium to get to a large number of people with a message that combines visual and audio and the brand message.
And the fact that somebody is watching this now and hearing what you're saying means it's in part in the corner of their living room, and they are getting the message direct to their house.
Absolutely, and online is undoubtedly taking up more of our lives, but I think there's a real challenge for advertisers in making the online as a way of getting your message across a challenge. There are very few people making money online at the moment through the advertising model, and some of that's technology, and just in terms of the fact that bandwidth isn't sufficiently strong to allow people to watch TV comfortably online. I think part of it, though, is just the context of the fact that I think people do like watching TV in a particular context, in a living room context, for example, that a computer doesn't replicate so easily.
It's entertainment, whereas one would argue reading a newspaper isn't. Just on television and on advertising, the Shark Awards. Tell us a little bit about this.
Shark Awards is the big jamboree. I suppose we get a lot of UK advertising agencies over as an excuse to have a party, but there's a serious side to it, namely that it's the opportunity to showcase the best in Irish and international excellence. And this year, we had a really particularly good year, a vintage year. I think it's been acknowledged by the judges. One campaign that's probably worth highlighting is from Blinder, which is a production company who, with Rothco, the advertising agency, put together the AIB Surfer ad. I think a lot of people might remember that ad. It took about 10 months to make this ad, to get exactly the right conditions for the wave. It's a 40-foot wave. People may remember seeing it. The Alien, I think, is the name of this wave, off the cliffs of Moher. Superb ad, and shows that in Ireland, we have the talent to match the best international standards.
Let's have a look.
I just started the surf school as a way of being able to surf on the west coast of Ireland 7 days a week. I've always banked with AIB for every step of the journey, really. There is a relationship there. When I started surfing, I was absolutely terrified of any sort of wave. I guess the big thing is, no matter how crazy the situation, just staying calm. You're not on your own.
Whatever success means to you, be with AIB.
Yeah, I mean, the quality of everything that's produced at this is at the highest level.
Absolutely, and the judging panel at the Sharks, it's a top panel of international judges. So I think that work that we've seen there is something that stands the test anywhere.
Okay, this is like the Oscars of the advertising industry.
It's the Oscars, and just coming back to what you said earlier, now there's an increasing focus as well as the TV side on online as well, and even things like promotions of TV programs. There's a section there for the best TV promos as well. So it is indeed the Oscars, and it's been in Cork for over 45 years, I believe, so an institution at this stage, David.
The advertising industry, where to now?
Well, there's no doubt that it faces enormous challenges. I think the first thing we're going to see in the next 12 months is a lot of consolidation of the advertising agencies. I think they're also going to be grappling increasingly with how they make money when the traditional revenue model that they had, which was to take a commission off media, I think that's under a lot of pressure. But consolidation is, I think, where we're headed, David.
The consolidation of smaller companies into one big group, they can't survive on their own. That's really what you mean?
Yeah, we're seeing it already, but I think it's going to be accelerated in the next 12 months.
And finally, the death of print, is it going to die?
I don't think so. I think that just as people predicted wireless was finished when TV came on, these media do operate in tandem with each other. So I don't see it in the foreseeable future, David, no.
Okay. Alex Gibson there, lecturer in marketing in DIT, joining us to talk about the advertising industry, the Shark Awards, and trends in the industry and where it might go from here. Stay with us. Parent Line is coming up next when we come back for the evening show on City Channel.